Once upon a time, in a beautiful African village, there was a young man named Maduka. Maduka was the only son of the king. This made him very special because one day he would be the next king. Maduka loved the idea of being king. He would dream about it all the time. When Maduka was just a boy, he loved to follow his father around. He would go to important meetings with him and watch how his father spoke to the people. Sometimes, when the king was away, Maduka would act like the king himself. He loved giving orders and feeling important. Maduka loved to live a lavish life. He had many friends, and they would often have fun together. They would eat the best foods, wear the finest clothes, and play games in the big palace. Maduka enjoyed being the center of attention and living a life full of luxury. But Maduka's father, the king, was very wise. He always told Maduka, "My son, you must learn to be responsible. A good king is kind and cares for his people. You must be humble and ready to serve the village." Maduka would just nod and say, "Yes, father," but inside he didn't really listen. He thought being king was all about giving orders and enjoying the good life. One day Maduka was with his friends and he said, "I can't wait to be king. I wish my father would hurry up and make me king already." One friend said, "Maduka, you should be careful what you wish for." But Maduka didn't pay attention. He just laughed and kept dreaming about the day he would wear the crown and rule the village. Little did he know, his journey to becoming king would be much more difficult and important than he ever imagined. That day passed. Then one sunny day, Maduka was out with his friends, laughing and playing near the river. As they talked about their dreams, Maduka sighed, and the first thing he said was again, "I wish my father would hurry up and die so I can become king." His friends were shocked. One of them, looking around to make sure no one else heard, whispered, "Maduka, you really want to be king that badly? You know, there's a way to make that happen." Maduka's eyes widened with curiosity. "What do you mean?" he asked. The friend leaned in closer and said, "You could poison him, give him something that will make him sleep forever. Then you'll be king." Maduka was stunned. He had never thought about something so serious. He hesitated. Poison him? But that's dangerous. What if it goes wrong? Before anyone could say more, another friend named Amadi spoke up. "No, Maduka, that's not right. Killing your own father is not the way to become king. Remember, you don't have any brothers to fight for the throne. You will be king someday without doing anything bad." Maduka thought about Amadi's words. He knew Amadi was right, but the desire to become king still burned in his heart. He just nodded and said, "I guess you're right, Amadi. I'll wait." Even though he agreed with Amadi, the idea of becoming king sooner stayed in Maduka's mind. He tried to push it away, but it kept coming back, making him restless and eager. He didn't realize that this dangerous wish would lead to even more trouble and tough choices ahead. In the big bright palace, Maduka's mother, the first wife of the king, had a secret. She loved her son very much and wanted to make sure he would be the only one to become king. She remembered the day when the king started marrying more wives, hoping to have more children, especially sons. Maduka's mother worried. What if one of these new wives gives birth to a boy? She thought. Then Maduka will have to fight for the throne. She couldn't let that happen. One evening, she decided to visit an herbalist. She quietly left the palace and walked through the village, her face covered with a shawl, so no one would recognize her. When she reached the herbalist's hut, she explained her problem. The herbalist, an old and wise woman, listened carefully. "I can help you," she said. But remember, this is powerful magic. It will make sure no other wife will give birth to a male child for the king. Maduka's mother nodded eagerly. Please do it. I want my son to be the only prince. The herbalist performed a special ritual with herbs, chants, and smoke. She gave Maduka's mother a small potion and said, pour this in the palace well. When the other wives drink the water, they will not have sons. Maduka's mother did as she was told. She poured the potion into the well and waited. As the years passed, each new wife of the king gave birth to daughters, but never a son. Maduka remained the only prince, the only heir to the throne. Maduka's mother felt relieved. She thought to herself, now, no one will challenge Maduka when he becomes king. I will be the queen mother, and my son will rule the land. But this secret was heavy on her heart. She never told anyone, not even Maduka. She watched him grow, knowing she had done something very powerful and very dangerous to secure his future. As Maduka grew older and more eager to become king, his mother's secret stayed hidden, shaping their destiny in ways he could not yet understand. One day the king had to travel to a faraway village for an important meeting. Before he left, he told Maduka, my son, remember to be kind and fair while I am gone. You must take care of our people. Maduka nodded, but inside he was excited. Now, I can act like a real king, he thought. As soon as the king left, Maduka gathered his friends and started giving orders. He went to the market where all the villagers were selling their goods. With a loud voice, he announced, I am the acting king now. You must give me a share of your earnings today. The traders were surprised and scared. They had never seen Maduka act this way before. They tried to protest, but Maduka's guards were there, making sure everyone obeyed. Some traders gave him money, while others, who didn't have money, had to give him some of their goods. Maduka took fruits, cloth, and even animals, such as goats and hens. He and his friends celebrated, feeling powerful and important. But the villagers were sad and angry. They had worked hard for their earnings, and now the acting king had taken them by force. When the king returned, he heard the complaints from the villagers. They told him how Maduka had demanded money and goods, and how they were left with little to support their families. The king was deeply saddened by this news. He called Maduka and asked, my son, what have you done? Maduka, feeling proud, replied, I was acting as a king. I took what I deserved. The king shook his head and said, no, my son. A true king does not take from his people. He serves them and protects them. The king then went to the market and paid back the villagers for everything Maduka had taken. He apologized to them, promising that this would not happen again. Maduka watched in silence, feeling a mix of shame and anger. He thought being king meant having power and taking what he wanted. But his father had shown him that true leadership was about kindness and responsibility. This lesson was hard for Maduka to accept, and it made him even more determined to become king in his own way. Maduka's actions at the market were just the beginning. He enjoyed the feeling of power and wanted more. He started to do even worse things, showing his arrogance and lack of respect for the villagers. Maduka would walk around the village with his guards, looking at the beautiful girls who lived there. If he saw a girl he liked, he would point at her and say, bring her to the palace. I want to have a little fun. The guards, following his orders, would take the girl away, no matter how scared she looked. In the palace, Maduka would tell the girls, if you tell anyone about this, I will make you a slave here forever, and I will do whatever I wish with you tirelessly. The girls were terrified. They didn't want to become slaves, so they stayed quiet, even though they were very upset. After Maduka was done with them, the girls would return to their homes, sad and scared. They didn't tell their parents because they feared what Maduka might do. The village started to notice that something was wrong, but no one dared to speak out against the prince. Maduka's arrogance grew each day. He believed he could do anything he wanted because he was the future king. He didn't care about the feelings or well-being of the villagers. All he cared about was his own pleasure and power. The people of the village started to lose hope. They had loved their wise and kind king, but now they feared what would happen when Maduka took the throne. The elders whispered among themselves, wondering how they could protect the village from the young prince's growing cruelty. But Maduka didn't see the fear and sadness he was causing. He only saw his own desires and believed that being king meant taking whatever he wanted. His actions continued to hurt the villagers, and his heart grew colder and more distant from the lessons his father had tried to teach him. Little did Maduka know, his time of unchecked power was leading him down a dangerous path, one that would change his life and the life of the village forever. One peaceful morning, the king sat down to have his breakfast. He enjoyed a hearty meal and then decided to go and sleep a little, as usual. As he lay down, he closed his eyes and drifted into a deep sleep. But this time, he never woke up. The news spread quickly through the village. The king has passed away. The people whispered, their hearts heavy with sorrow. They loved their king and felt a deep sense of loss. The whole village mourned, and the atmosphere was filled with sadness. But in the palace, behind closed doors, Maduka and his mother had different feelings. They were secretly rejoicing. Finally, Maduka's wish had come true. He would become the king. Maduka's mother said, "Now, my son, you will be the king, and I will be the queen mother. Our dreams have come true." Maduka, hiding his excitement, put on a sad face and joined the villagers in mourning. He and his mother cried bitterly, but inside they were happy. They knew their time had come. The following month, a grand ceremony was held to crown Maduka as the new king. The villagers gathered, still feeling the loss of their beloved king, but they were ready to welcome Maduka as their new ruler. To everyone's surprise, Maduka was calm and kind during the ceremony. He spoke gently to the people and promised to be a good king. He said, "I will maintain peace and order in our village. I will honor my father's legacy and serve you well." The villagers were shocked. They had expected Maduka to be arrogant and cruel, but instead he seemed to be a different person. He greeted the elders with respect, played with the children, and listened to the concerns of the villagers. For a while, the village was peaceful. Maduka's sudden change in behavior made everyone hopeful. They thought maybe the responsibility of being king had changed him for the better. The people started to feel safe and happy again, believing that their new king would take care of them. But deep inside, Maduka had a hidden plan. His kindness was just a mask to hide his true intentions. He was waiting for the right moment to reveal his dark plan for the villagers. The calm before the storm was deceiving, and the true test of Maduka's character was yet to come. The villagers were happy with their new king. Maduka was kind and fair, and he kept the village peaceful. Everyone believed he had changed for the better. But what they didn't know was that Maduka had a hidden agenda, a dark plan that would soon unfold. One day, Maduka gathered the villagers and made an announcement. "My dear people," he said, "I have good news. I want to improve our village by giving some of you a chance to learn new things. I will send a group of young adults to a faraway land where they will be educated for 3 months. When they return, They will bring back new knowledge to help our village grow. The villagers were excited. They thought this was a wonderful opportunity. Young men and women eagerly volunteered, hoping to be chosen for the trip. Maduka selected 10 villagers, 5 boys and 5 girls, and sent them off with promises of a bright future. Every 3 months, Maduka repeated this process. He chose 10 new villagers and sent them away. But something strange started to happen. The villagers who left never returned. Their families grew worried and began to question the king. One day, a worried father approached Maduka and asked, "Your Highness, my daughter has been gone for 3 months. When will she return?" Maduka smiled and said, "Do not worry, they are still learning. They will come back soon with wonderful knowledge and skills." The villagers trusted Maduka and tried to be patient. But as more months passed and more villagers were sent away, the village started to feel empty. There were fewer young people, and the families left behind grew more anxious. A mother approached Maduka with tears in her eyes and asked, "Please, Your Highness, where is my son? I haven't heard from him since he left." Maduka reassured her with a gentle smile. "They are all doing well. They need more time to complete their education. They will return soon, I promise." But deep inside, Maduka knew the truth. He wasn't sending the villagers for education. He had a dark deal with a rich man from a faraway land. Maduka was selling the villagers 10 at a time to this man. The rich man paid him a lot of money, and Maduka enjoyed the wealth and power it brought him. The villagers, trusting their king, tried to believe his words, but a sense of unease began to spread. They couldn't understand why none of their loved ones had returned. The true horror of Maduka's plan was still hidden, waiting to be discovered. The village was on the brink of a revelation that would change everything. One hot afternoon, a rich man arrived in the village with a group of strong guards. He wore fine clothes and carried himself with great importance. The villagers stared at him, wondering why such a wealthy stranger had come to their humble village. The rich man demanded to see King Maduka. "Where is your king?" he asked, his voice loud and commanding. The villagers pointed towards the palace, and the rich man marched straight to the entrance. Maduka was in the courtyard, enjoying the day, when he saw the rich man approaching. His face turned pale, but he quickly tried to compose himself. "Welcome to our village," Maduka said, forcing a smile. "How can I help you?" The rich man didn't smile back. Instead, he looked around at the villagers and then back at Maduka. "It's time to collect what is mine," he said firmly. "Gather the rest of the villagers. I have come to claim them." The villagers were confused and scared. They whispered among themselves, wondering what the rich man was talking about. The elders stepped forward and asked, "What do you mean? Why would you claim our people?" The rich man pointed at Maduka and said, "Your king has been selling you to me, 10 at a time. He promised to sell the entire village. Now I am here to take you all." Gasps of shock and horror filled the air. The villagers couldn't believe what they were hearing. They turned to Maduka, their eyes full of anger and betrayal. "Is this true?" they demanded. Maduka tried to speak, but his voice trembled. I can explain," he stammered. The rich man interrupted. "There's nothing to explain. Maduka and I had a deal. He sold you all for money. Ask him yourself." The elders, their faces stern, confronted Maduka. "Is this true? Did you really sell us?" Maduka knew he couldn't hide the truth any longer. He bowed his head in shame and confessed, "Yes, it's true. I sold the villagers to him. I needed the money, and I thought it was the only way." Cries of outrage and disbelief echoed through the village. The people felt betrayed by the one they trusted to protect them. They couldn't understand how Maduka could do something so terrible. The rich man, satisfied that the truth was out, said, "Now, gather the rest of the villagers. I have come to take them." But the villagers, united in their anger, stood their ground. "No, we will not go with you," they shouted. They turned to Maduka and said, "You are no longer our king. We will not follow a traitor." Maduka, seeing the fury in their eyes, realized the gravity of his actions. He had lost everything: his power, his people's trust, and his dignity. The village was in turmoil, and the truth had shattered their peace. The rich man's visit had exposed the darkest secret. And now, the village had to decide what to do next. The village was in chaos. The rich man's revelation had left everyone stunned and angry. The elders demanded answers, and Maduka knew he had to confess everything. With a heavy heart, Maduka began to explain. "Before my father died, this rich man came to our village. He offered my father a large sum of money to buy some of our slaves. But my father was a good and wise king. He refused, saying that our people were not for sale." The villagers listened, their eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Maduka continued, "After my father refused, I approached the rich man in secret. I was eager to become king, and I saw a way to make it happen. We made a terrible plan. The rich man gave me a poison, and I put it in my father's food. When my father ate, he went to sleep and never woke up." Gasps and cries filled the air as the villagers realized the extent of Maduka's betrayal. They couldn't believe that their prince, their future king, had done something so evil. "After my father died," Maduka went on, "I became king, but I didn't stop there. I wanted more money and power. So I made a deal with the rich man. I would sell him not just the slaves, but eventually the entire village. I started by sending 10 villagers at a time, pretending they were going for education." Tears streamed down the faces of the villagers as they thought of their loved ones who had been sent away, never to return. The truth was more painful than they could have imagined. Maduka looked at the ground, unable to meet their eyes. "I know I have done terrible things," he said. "I betrayed my father, and I betrayed all of you. I was blinded by my desire for power and wealth, and I didn't think about the harm I was causing." The elders, their faces stern and hearts heavy, stepped forward. "You have not only betrayed us, but also dishonored your father's memory," one of them said. "You are no longer fit to be our king." Maduka, filled with regret and shame, nodded. "I understand. I will accept whatever punishment you decide." The rich man, seeing the villagers united and defiant, realized that he would not be able to take them as easily as he had planned. He looked at Maduka with disdain and said, "You have failed, and now you will pay for it." The villagers, with the strength of their unity, drove the rich man and his guards out of the village. They refused to be sold or controlled any longer. They stood together, determined to protect their home and each other. Maduka, stripped of his title and power, was left alone to face the consequences of his actions. He had betrayed his people and his family, and now he had to live with the weight of his choices. The village, though wounded by his betrayal, found strength in their unity and began to rebuild, determined to create a future where no one would ever be sold again. As Maduka finished his confession, the air was thick with tension and sorrow. The villagers stood in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with betrayal. Just then, a figure appeared at the edge of the crowd. Gasps of shock and whispers of "ghost" filled the air as the villagers recognized the man who stepped forward. It was the king. The villagers couldn't believe their eyes. The king, who they thought had died, stood before them, alive and well. He raised his hand to calm the crowd. "I am not a ghost," he said. "I am very much alive." Maduka's eyes widened in disbelief. "Father, but how?" The king looked at his son with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "Maduka, this was all a test," he explained. "A test to see if you were worthy of becoming king. Only a few elders and I knew about it." The elders nodded in agreement, stepping forward to stand by the king's side. "We agreed to this plan with the rich man to reveal your true character, Maduka," one elder said. "We wanted to see if you would rule with wisdom and kindness or with greed and cruelty." The villagers, still in shock, listened intently as the king continued. "We staged my death to observe your actions. We wanted to see if you would honor the responsibilities of a king or succumb to the temptations of power. Sadly, you chose the latter." Maduka and his mother stood in utter shame. They realized the gravity of their actions and how deeply they had betrayed their people and the king. The king then turned to Maduka's mother. "And you, I know about the herbalist ritual you performed. I consulted the oracle after I noticed something strange about the births in the palace. The oracle revealed everything." Maduka's mother, knowing she could no longer hide, began to cry. "Yes, it's true," she confessed. "I did visit the herbalist to ensure no other wife would bear a male child. But there is more you should know." The crowd fell silent, waiting for her to continue. "Maduka is not your son," she said, her voice trembling. "When I was young, before you became king, I was in love with a palm wine tapper. I got pregnant by him. When I heard you would become king, I broke up with the palm wine tapper and forced the pregnancy on you so I could enjoy the royal life." The villagers gasped in shock, and Maduka looked at his mother in disbelief. "Mother, how could you do this?" he asked, his voice filled with pain. She continued, tears streaming down her face. "I did not want to live the life of luxury, so I made sure the other princesses could not give birth to a male child. I did everything to secure my place in the palace." After hearing all these, the king then turned to the villagers. "I know you have suffered because of Maduka's actions, but I am here to make things right. We will bring back every villager who was sold. No one will be left behind." The villagers cheered, their spirits lifting at the king's promise. The rich man, who had been watching from the sidelines, knew he had not lost because he was in on the plan all from the start. The king's authority and the villagers' unity were too strong for him to challenge. The king then faced Maduka and his mother. "You have both brought shame upon this village and upon our family. As your punishment, you are banished from this village. You will leave at once and never return." Maduka and his mother, filled with regret and sorrow, bowed their heads. They knew they deserved this punishment. Without another word, they left the village, leaving behind the life they had once known. The king, with the help of the elders and the villagers, worked tirelessly to bring back all those who had been sold. Slowly, the village began to heal. Families were reunited, and the bonds of trust and love grew stronger than ever. The villagers, grateful for the return of their wise and kind king, vowed to protect their home and each other. They had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of true leadership and the dangers of greed and betrayal. And so, the village thrived once more, with the king leading them with the wisdom and kindness that had always been his hallmark. The memory of Maduka's betrayal faded, replaced by the strength and unity of a community that had faced its darkest times and emerged stronger than ever. Moral of the story: true leadership is not about seeking power and wealth for oneself, but about serving and protecting one's people with kindness and integrity. Greed and betrayal only lead to downfall and sorrow, while honesty, unity, and selflessness create a strong and thriving community. True worthiness comes from one's actions and character, not from birthright or ambition. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.